Welcome back to Tier Masters, everyone. I've got an epic topic for you guys today. It's MCU movies, and we're going to start from the first Iron Man all the way to the newest movies that have come out in 2023. So, for the first one, we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think it's pretty standard, doesn't do too much for the MCU as a whole. A decent movie. I don't know. I'm going to put it in C tier. Next, we've got the original Ant-Man. I love this movie. In my opinion, it's highly underrated. You can watch it as a standalone. This is going to go in the A tier for me. Avengers Age of Ultron probably gets overlooked due to the other Avengers movie. I think it's a pretty solid movie. It introduces a lot of new characters. I think this also goes in A tier with Ant-Man. I feel like most people would probably immediately stick both Avengers Endgame and Infinity War in S tier, but hear me out on this one. While Avengers Endgame does a lot to cap off an incredible run in the MCU and closes a huge phase of the storyline, I think it's really a pretty straightforward movie plot, and there are some pretty cool moments in it. And while I do think it's an incredible cap of a storyline in the series, I think it's just a decent movie, so I'm going to put it in B tier. The biggest upside to Avengers Infinity War is the fan service that it provides. I don't think the storyline itself is too incredible. I think it goes in B tier next to Avengers Endgame. Black Panther is a pretty cool movie. It gives us an insight to Wakanda. I think this is also a B tier movie. It's pretty cool. I think the villain is good, but maybe nothing too special. I personally find Captain America Civil War to be pretty dry. It's mostly the same people that you already know just fighting each other. I don't think there's too much that it adds other than the Avengers kind of breaking up. This goes in D tier for me. While I'm at it, let me go ahead and remove E tier. Captain America, the First Avenger. So the first time we really get to see Captain America, I think it's a pretty good movie. There's not too much I can remember that just makes it stand out as one of the greatest movies in the series. But I also think it's probably below the movies we've put in B tier, so for that I'm going to put it in C tier. Captain America, the Winter Soldier is pretty good, and you really get hit with a plot twist of everything that's kind of going on within S.H.I.E.L.D. I think this is an A tier movie. It could arguably be an S tier movie, but I'm going to stick it in A tier for now. I thought Captain Marvel was decent, although it could have been better. I think this goes in C tier. Doctor Strange is a really cool movie, and it's kind of the first one that is really made in a different style and focuses on a different character than most of the other Marvel movies before that. So I think it goes in A tier. I'm going to start with the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Everyone kind of fell in love with them when we were introduced to them. And I think it's a really good movie overall. I think the only downside to it is that it kind of develops slowly, and so you don't get introduced to the entire crew until later in the movie, but I still think it belongs in S tier. Moving on, I find Guardians Volume 2 to be even better than the original one, although I think most people prefer the first one. I think it's up there with the first Guardians. Although if I'm going off of a more objective community ranking based on the public and what they think, I think this goes in A tier. Next, we have the first Iron Man, which really kickstarts the MCU. I think I'm going to put this in S tier because it's a really great movie and everything it did for the franchise and the MCU in general. Iron Man 2 I did not like as much. I just really didn't find the villain or storyline interesting. This is D tier. I think Iron Man 3 belongs right beside Iron Man 2. I don't think it made very many improvements, although I do like the villain better in Iron Man 3 than in Iron Man 2. Spider-Man Far From Home was pretty good. I like Mysterio, and he was a pretty unique villain that Spider-Man got to face. I think this is probably a B tier movie. The plot in Spider-Man Homecoming is pretty simple and straightforward, and although the villain wasn't too great, I thought Tom Holland did a phenomenal job starting in his first standalone Spider-Man movie, and for that, I'm going to put it in A tier. The original Avengers movie, this was really back before CGI was advanced, and it's always fun to go back and see the advancements that have been made in CGI. I think there are better plots, but just because of how iconic the first Avengers is in the MCU, this is going to go in S tier. I don't think much needs to be said about The Incredible Hulk. I really kind of despised it. I don't think it was that good of a movie. This is F tier. In my personal movie critic opinion, I think Thor Ragnarok is one of the best movies in the MCU, although looking at it more objectively, it does kind of change Thor's personality to a more comedic style. I know that's what they were going for, but it kind of is out of character for him, and taking that into account, this is an A tier movie. And while I'm at it, I'm thinking about moving one of these down. I think I'm going to move Avengers Age of Ultron into B. Thor the Dark World was really not that great of a movie. I think I even like it more than most people, and I'm going to put it in D. I really do enjoy going back and watching the original Thor. I think it's really cool that you get to experience Asgard and things away from Earth for the first time. I'm not sure if I'm going to put it in B or C, but I think going off of what we have there, this goes in C. While I'm not totally in love with the Black Widow movie by itself, it did do her character justice and introduce to us some hilarious and interesting characters. So for that reason, I think it goes in C, although it could really go in D. I'm not gonna lie, Shang-Chi really impressed me, and it was far better than I was even expecting it to be. I think it's one of the best movies of the current phase of the MCU, and I think it goes solidly in B tier. I feel like for the most part, Eternals is a love or hate movie. I probably liked it more than most of the people I know did, but even then, I found it really confusing at times, and it didn't really relate a lot to anything that was going on in the universe. I think it goes in D tier. Spider-Man No Way Home, no question about it, is an S tier. Phenomenal acting, and although the return of Tobey and Andrew was really fan service, it was fan service in the best way. You got some of the best villains from any of the Spider-Mans back. You got to see old faces amongst the new faces. A great plot. I thought this was done masterfully. It's an S tier. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness should be changed to Multiverse of Madness. We got to see amazing teasers. The Illuminati was really hyped up. I mean, the trailers for this were just fantastic. And then you got to the movie theater, and there really weren't any plot twists. Spoiler alert, but Wanda was pretty much outed as the villain in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and there was nothing else. I was expecting something else. Maybe she was working for a higher up. Maybe she wasn't the villain trying to save somebody. No, it just turned out the entire movie was just Wanda chasing them. For that reason, it's going to go in C tier, and it could easily be below that. Thor Love and Thunder really follows the emphasis of comedy that was placed on Thor Ragnarok. So if you liked Thor Ragnarok, you'll probably at least tend to kind of like this one. The only problem is they just overdo it, and they take a lot of the seriousness out of the movie and just turn it into comedy. I probably would just put this immediately in D tier, but I went back and watched it a second time, and it was a lot better than I had first remembered. So for that, I'm going to put it in C tier. I really enjoyed Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I thought they did an amazing job handling the situation with Chadwick, and they did him justice in the way that they wrote the story. I really do like the villain in it, and I think it goes at the bottom of A tier. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania kind of reminds me of Multiverse of Madness, where you had things like Loki that were building up to it, and the trailer just really got you hyped for it, but it wasn't that great of a movie, and I think it is a D tier movie. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was a phenomenal way to close out their chapter in the MCU. This goes in S tier, and it really reminded me of Spider-Man No Way Home, where you just couldn't have written it better for the characters to sign out. I think they did a great job of giving us a little bit into Rocket's backstory, and there's a lot of closure for every character. They all go their own way. There's not really a question that's left. You really feel at peace knowing they closed this chapter with such an epic movie, and that all the characters are just kind of doing their own thing. So this is my list of the MCU movies, and I know that may differ from a lot of other people's opinions. So let me know what your favorite movie is and what egregiously horrible takes I had. I'll see you in the next one.